Some time ago I participated in a GMTK game jam. It turned out I really like game jams and should take part in them more often. But I also realized one crucial thing during this 48-hour game jam. I suck at coming up with good game ideas. Turns out it's just as hard to come up with good gameplay or a story as it is to write code that will bring it to life. This weekend though, after almost 6 months of waiting, I finally gotten access to the most advanced artificial intelligence API ever created, made by OpenAI. The API runs on GPT-3, a language model trained on trillions of words from the internet. It basically read all the crap we've been posting to the internet up until October 2019 and figured out how we use our language based on this data. I can't wait to see how it turned out this time.
Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back. Don't destroy humans.
To use the API, you simply provide it with some text input and it will return a text completion, trying to match the context of the pattern you gave it. You can specifically craft a description of a news article or a script or any other text input, and the API will generate the rest of it. After gaining the access to the API, I played around in a playground provided by the OpenAI, and I can summarize my experience with one sentence. God is dead, and one day we will all be killed by machines. Seriously, GPT-3 is a really advanced artificial intelligence model. At first you start to think that it's just some guy sitting at the other side of the internet cable, answering your inputs with his thoughts. But no, that's just how advanced this API is, and it will only get better when we provide it with more data to learn from. So I thought to myself, how can I use the AI's intelligence before the AI uses its intelligence to rip the soul from my cold dead body and exterminate the human race from the little sweet planet called the Earth? Well, I could ask it to give me some cool game ideas. Yeah, that'll make the machine uprising apocalypse totally worth it. So I asked the API to give me some cool ideas for a game. I tried not to be very specific so that the idea fully comes from the API. I played around with different approaches and styles of the text, varying from generating a list of cool game ideas to generating a full description of one game idea. I also played around with different AI engines and the temperature, which is a setting that controls the randomness of the response, and started receiving some content. Some of the responses were very simple and straightforward, like make a game that can be played on the computer or something like that. Some were straight up nightmare fuels, responses in which the AI came up with some really weird shit. One response even suggested that the API knows that it's an artificial intelligence. But after many too weird or not interesting enough ideas, I finally got what I was hoping for. My input for the API was, here is a description of a game that doesn't exist yet, but people would play it if it was created. And the API response was, it's a racing game with a twist. Rather than driving cars, you drive a school bus, and instead of racing around tracks, you race around town, picking up aliens, dropping them off at their spaceship. I'm imagining a scene where a gang of aliens are walking down a street and you're racing your bus to get to them first. Otherwise, they'll all get in someone else's bus. Pretty random, but it makes sense in a way. So I decided to go with it. Before I started working, I manipulated my text input so that the AI would tell me a bit more about the style and setting of the game. It decided to go with small American town in retro vibes. I also decided to go with the rule that every time I need to make a design decision for a game, I would simply ask the AI. So basically, I made the AI my boss for the weekend. Yeah, I'm starting to think that it wasn't my greatest idea. As usual, I decided to go with Unity as my game engine. I created my first scene and jumped into creating the first arena level. I decided to stick with the small, simple square grid level to make things easier for now. I also need to confess to my weakness here. You see, usually when creating any project, you'd want to create game mechanics, level layout, gameplay and stuff like that first, using simple blocks and cubes, leaving modeling, texturing, animation etc. as the last thing to do. But sometimes I just can't resist and start with the visuals and develop the mechanics on the almost ready to ship assets. I find this approach faster sometimes, but I wouldn't recommend doing so in any bigger project. Since it's Friday and I have to go to work on Monday, this is definitely going to be a really small project for me. So I glued some town assets I had from previous projects together and borrowed, if you know what I mean, a bus model from the internet. Having a basic layout of the town, I jumped into writing a driving mechanic controls. Being the expert driver I am, the driving mechanic turned out great the first time, with no unwanted bugs. After some time playing around and tweaking my controls, the bus driving still felt a little bit off. After getting more educated about how the driving physics work, I realized that the main thing that was missing was friction. You know, the thing that makes your butt warm on the slide and the thing that is ignored in every single physics homework. So I added some wheel colliders and tweaked the rigid body of my bus, and it made it a lot better to drive. I also added some cool drifting effect to make turning a lot more agile. I want to make this game playable on mobile devices, so I added a joystick to control the driving. Unfortunately, driving a bus with a joystick isn't as fun as I'd like it to be, so I'll have to rewrite the driving mechanics entirely or reconsider the whole mobile devices idea, but that's a problem for the future me. Fuck you, future me, it's shit. The level I created actually already gives the small American town vibes that the AI wanted, so now I have to fulfill the retro feel that it also requested. I played around with some shaders and skyboxes and decided that the most retro feel I get is when I change the time of the day to be late evening in the game. This way I'm also able to add some cool bloom effects to my lanterns and add some spotlights to the scenery, which looks really cool when the bus drives directly under the lantern. I also added some bloom lighting to the random windows in the buildings, but only those that would be still open late at night. So for example, an always open pharmacy or a corpo office does have some lights turned on, but a gym or a cinema does not. Now it was time to add the alien stuff to the game. I found a really cool flying saucer model on the asset store. By the way, I really need to start practicing my 3D modeling more often. I placed the spaceship at the central area of the town, which immediately gave the game a bit of the X-Files vibes. I attached a cone with a gradient material to the saucer so that it indicates a beam in which you have to drop the aliens off. Having that, it's time to add the aliens themselves to the game. Later on I'll try to model the alien dudes, but for now I just added a simple humanoid models to act as aliens. I placed my aliens in random places around the map and created a simple passenger pickup logic. I also added a simple UI to indicate how many passengers you have on board and how many you already delivered. Having the core functionality of the game created, it was now time to make it a racing game. The thing is, a racing game could mean many different things. You could race against other players in an online multiplayer match, which would be the most difficult version as I never made an online multiplayer game before. Raced against time, which would be the easiest solution. Or raced against AI controlled enemies, which would be the most fun to create. I decided to leave the decision about which version I should go with to the almighty AI, hoping that it would show mercy in its mysterious godly plan and not make me code a multiplayer racing logic. I created a text input for the API, crossed my fingers and prayed to the artificial gods, waiting for the API's response.
The answer is yes. The game would have all of these modes, and it would balance them so that you're playing the mode that you're the most in the mood for any given time, and the game will be easy to pick up and play casually, but will also have a lot depth and strategy for those that want to.
Fuck. So, the almighty AI has spoken. Online multiplayer with local modes against time and AI-controlled enemies it is. Join me in the second part of this journey, that will come out soon enough, as I need some time to learn about coding multiplayer stuff and do some research about AI-controlled players for a racing game. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to this channel. See you in another video. Bye!